Good morning. It is a chilly morning here, probably in the 20s Fahrenheit for those of you that are on Fahrenheit. In Celsius, it's probably a minus something. um, we are back. I am back this morning with Mountains of Spices. I've had many people request that I continue with Mountains of Spices, and I've been very busy with the books for the school children, and so I set this aside until the winter holidays. And so this morning, we are going to start with chapter 4 of Mountains of Spices. And this is the Mountain of Camphire, and it is the fruit of the Spirit, joy. And the title of the chapter is The Victory of Love. My voice is a little croaky this morning, so please bear with me. So here we go. The Mountain of Camphire, joy, the victory of love. A few days after the experience recorded in the last chapter, the king again called Grace and Glory and told her that he wished to take her to another part of the high places. And he led her right across the mountain of pomegranates to the next part of the same mountain range. Up there on the high places, above all the clouds and mist of the valley, the sky was always gloriously unclouded, and the light so clear that it was possible to look out across the immense distances. On this particular early morning, for the times of solitary fellowship and communion with the king were generally during the very early hours before the work of the day started. Grace and Glory saw that though all was calm and clear up there on the mountain, the valleys were filled with billowing clouds, so that they seemed to be looking out over the sea of swirling waters. And from time to time, thunder came rolling up from the depths beneath. After crossing the mountain of pomegranates, they came to another, which the king told her was called the Mountain of Camphire, for it was specially set apart for the cultivation of that spice. The camphor, or henna bushes, which grew up there, yielded a most lovely perfume, and also a costly dye. Grace and Glory looked around with great delight. Instead of the pomegranate trees of the first mountain, these slopes were covered with fragrant little bushes, from which hung clusters of small white flowers with the sweetest scent imaginable. These were the bushes which yielded the spice, which in our language is called joy. It seemed that these fragrant groves had a peculiar attraction for the birds. Never in her life had Grace and Glory seen such multitudes of them assembled in one place. Every bush seemed to be swaying with the motion of alighting or departing birds. They flew in great flocks, weaving beautiful patterns with their feathers glittering against the sky, and the moving of their wings stirred the air, so that as they swooped or rushed it was as though gusts of wind blew over the mountainside. All the birds were singing together as melodiously and diversely as an orchestra of musical instruments, until the whole area seemed alive with beating wings, rushing wind and song, while everything was drenched in the sweet tingling perfume of the camphor bushes. It was so lovely that Grace and Glory could not restrain herself, but laughed aloud with joy and clapped her hands. As they walked along the mountain slope, the king told her a little about the nature of the camphor bushes, which produce the fruit of joy. He explained to her that before the perfumed oil could be produced by the plant, the ground around the bushes needed to be manured with a bitter substance which the roots of the bushes drew in from the soil and changed into the oil of gladness. There were certain seasons when his workmen treated the soil in this way, just before the heavy winter rains and snows began, when everything on the bushes faded and fell to the ground, and the branches were left completely bare. As he told her this, the king looked at his companion and said to her with one of his beautiful smiles, "The season when the bushes are stripped bare, and the bitter substance is poured into the soil, and is left to be watered by the rains of heaven, is called up here the night of sorrow. But this present season, when the bushes are all laden with blossom, and the oil is ready to be extracted from them, is the morning of joy, when all the sorrow and bitter experiences are changed into gladness." Listen to the birds singing grace and glory, and see if you can understand their song. They stood together for a few moments in silence, and suddenly the singing of the birds became audible as a lovely song which she could understand quite clearly. It was this: "Hark to love's triumphant shout! Joy is born from pain. Joy is sorrow inside out. Grief remade again. Broken hearts, look up and see. This is love's own victory. Here marred things are made anew. Filth is here made clean. Here are robes, not rags, for you. Mirth where tears have been. Where sin's dreadful power was found, grace doth now much more abound. Hark, such songs of jubilation! Every creature sings, great the joy of every nation. Love is King of kings. See, ye blind ones, shout, ye dumb! Joy is sorrow overcome." As she listened, Grace and Glory remembered the long, bitter, and difficult journey which she herself had made up to the high places, when sorrow and suffering had been her companions, and the long night of sorrow had seemed sometimes as though it would never end. As she recalled that journey, she thought that never had she heard so lovely a song, or understood the glorious truth that joy is sorrow overcome and transformed. "If other nights of sorrow must come to me," she said to herself, "I can never fear nor dread them again, for I know they are only the seasons when the camphor bushes of the king are prepared and made ready to produce the oil of gladness. Oh, how lovely his thoughts and his plans are! How great is his wonderful goodness and loving kindness! His ways of grace past finding out. Oh, that I may always react to sorrow in such a way that it will be overcome and be changed into his joy." Here and there on the slopes grew great spreading trees, and in the shade of one of these the two sat down and began to talk together. From the Mountain of Camphire they could look out on the dazzlingly white peaks of the still higher places, and could see the summit of the Black Mountain just appearing above the clouds and mist. And once again the contrast between the joy and the beauty of the slopes on which they were sitting, and the desolation of the ruined mountain opposite, struck Grace and Glory with a sense of almost unbearable pity and pain. as though he read her very thoughts and spoke in answer to them. She heard the voice of the king saying, "Grace and glory, have you ever thought of what joy it is to me to be a Savior? To be able to take something which has been marred and spoiled and ruined by evil, and to produce out of it something lovely and good and enduring, something which can never again be spoiled. No cost can possibly be too great in order to accomplish such a triumph as that. Whatever the price, love will pay it exultantly and with joy unspeakable and full of glory." As he spoke, he looked across at the charred black summit of the mountain opposite, as it just appeared above the clouds of swirling mist, and his whole face was alight with a glory of love and joy impossible to describe. Presently he began to sing another of the mountain songs, and in the words and the melody there was such a blending of sorrow and of joy that Grace and Glory sat as though lost in wondering awe. "The cry of all distorted things, why hast thou made us thus to bear the anguish which life brings? Why didst thou not love us, so marred that God himself must weep, fit only for the rubbish heap? The cry of every breaking heart, why were we born for this? Evil alone is made our part, and nothing of earth's bliss. Why didst thou give us human birth, if we may know no love on earth? The cry of each despairing mind ascends before love's throne. Behold us, God, or art thou blind? Can we be blamed alone? If thou be there, then answer us. Why make us, or why make us thus? And love's voice answers from a cross, I bear it all with you. I share with you in all your loss. I will make all things new. None suffer in their sin alone. I made, I bear, and I atone. There was a long silence when the song ended, and then the king said, "You know, Grace and Glory, it is enough for the disciple to be as his Lord, and to learn also to overcome evil with good. There is absolutely no experience, however terrible, or heartbreaking, or unjust, or cruel, or evil, which you can meet in the course of your earthly life, that can harm you if you will but let me teach you how to accept it with joy, and to react to it triumphantly as I did myself, with love and forgiveness, and with willingness to bear the results of wrong done by others. Every trial, every test, every difficulty and seemingly wrong experience through which you may have to pass is only another opportunity granted to you of conquering an evil thing and bringing out of it something to the lasting praise and glory of God. You sons and daughters of Adam, in all your suffering and sorrow, are the most privileged of all beings, for you are to be perfected through suffering and to become the sons and daughters of God with His power to overcome evil with good. If only you realized your destiny, how you would rejoice at every experience of trial and tribulation, and even in the persecution which comes your way. You would count it all joy. You would take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, and persecutions, and distresses for Christ's sake. For when you are weak, then you learn how to be made strong. Ponder over the things which I have told you up here on the mountain of joy. And as we go down now into the valley, and you meet again with the evil and cruel things which torment your relatives down there, yes, and with their unloving reactions to your desire to share your joy with them, remember the lesson which you have learned up here on this mountain, and count it all joy. For it all constitutes a glorious opportunity whereby you may learn to overcome evil with good and to share in the victory of love. Then they went on their way again, leaping down the mountainside toward the valley. And in the heart of Grace and Glory there was a joy such as she had never before experienced, and a completely new understanding of the purpose of their work down there in the places of sorrow and evil. And that is the end of chapter 4. Wow. I especially needed that chapter this morning. I don't know about you, but I am very grateful to our loving God, who knows all and who has borne all for us. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May He make His face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up His countenance upon you and grant you His peace.